Screenless. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Creative Cuppa. I hope you're well and your day is looking fabulous. It's a funny day, isn't it, Tuesday? You're into the week, but it's nowhere near the weekend. Anyway. Now, I set Screenless up as an audio brand in 2018 to create original content away from the screens we use so much every day. This podcast is produced under the Screenless brand, as you'll have heard from the opening ident. I love the fact that if you're listening to this, there's a chance you're not looking at your phone or computer screen. If you are, stop it. Go on, give yourself 10 minutes of pure audio. Although I've been composing music for a long time, I still feel relatively new to the audio content industry. Today's guest, on the other hand, he's an audio fiction veteran. His words, not mine, and browsing his website confirms that. He's produced so much content, I'll put a link in the show notes to his website so you can see for yourself. So, if you're sitting comfortably, or out walking, or on your skateboard, I don't know. Anyway, here we go. Jack Bowman, multi-award-winning audio producer. Welcome to Creative Cuppa.
Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you? It's been a long year, hasn't it?
It has been a long year. It almost feels like 5 years. So, but yeah, someone said to me like the best way of putting when you say how you doing is like pandemic fine. You know, because there's lots of terrible, horrible things happening out there. And you're in here and you're well, you're healthy, but obviously you've got your pressures and your mental health and all these things to look after. So pandemic fine is where I'm at.
Yeah. There's a weird sort of guilt, isn't there, about moaning too much or feel like you're moaning too much, because obviously other people have it way worse than we do.
Indeed, yes.
But talking of time, you've worked in the podcast and non-radio broadcast space for over, 15, 16 years. Mm-hmm. How did you get started in that? And was it a conscious decision to avoid working in radio?
No, back in the day, I think I try and piece this together a bit. Now I suddenly realised how long I've been doing this. But at the time, things like the BBC felt very inaccessible, very, very distant. And, you know, there was a lot of us in London, particularly in the London Dungeon, that were just muddling along as, you know, actors, you know, scaring tourists, but, you know, we were going for auditions. And there was a lot of brilliant talent in that actors company at the time. People like Ben Whitehead, who now does Wallace for Wallace and Gromit, and Matt Berry, Toast of London, etc. And a lot of us were getting frustrated, so people started putting on their own plays. I went and wrote a play called Frozen, which we put on at the Oxford Arms in Camden, and the etc. Theatre. And around about the same time, Marielle Runnicka-Temple, who'd been a Carlton Hobbs finalist for her drama school. And if you don't know the Carlton Hobbs, that's a competition where the students who win that competition win a contract to the BBC Actors Company. She got to the finals, didn't win the place in the Actors Company. And after a couple of years, around about the same time, she just had this idea, which was like, let's just record our own radio plays, as it was back then, online radio, as it was known. And we would just put them on a website and people could download them as MP3s. So she came to see Frozen. She loved it. She asked me if I would basically let her have the play to just, you know, record as an audio drama. Went on a website and it stayed there for 6 months. People were pulling it down from all over the world. And the rest, as they say, was history. We just went on this path where within a year, the iPod arrived. Podcasting then became the sort of collective phrase for all of this. And as the industry's grown, as you know, my development has grown within audio drama. It was like suddenly I just found the niche I was looking for creatively. And that's kind of been the journey of the last 15, 16 years.
I was going to ask you about the changing media, actually, the iPods and the smartphones coming in, starting to appear.
Yeah.
That must have felt like a really kind of evolutionary time for the audio industry.
Yes, it was. Because what very quickly happened within about a year was we just started making all this content and we were just putting it on websites, and then RSS came along, and then the iPod came along, and originally, like we were saying, like this is like audio drama for the podcast generation, I think was at the original phrase Wireless used back then. But what very quickly happened was we had people like Timothy West and Prunella Scales and Richard O'Brien suddenly look and go, oh, this is kind of like an alternative way to make the kind of audio drama we don't get to make at the BBC. So we suddenly started having this little pool of people going, we kind of like the freedoms that the production company is offering, because we didn't have to adhere to Ofcom, we didn't have to adhere to BBC guidelines or anything like that. So we started to get like a few people coming in, and then people started bringing us their passion projects. And, before long, within 2 years, we were just going, this is absolutely nuts. Stephen Fry, he heard about the company, and he would accept every script we sent him to read. It took 4 years.
Wow.
But eventually he found one he liked, and he came in, did his stuff. So those early days, though, just got stressed. Podcasting wasn't what it is today, particularly not what it's become in the last couple of years. So back then, the kind of work we were doing, I think, was seen by a lot of names to sort of do fun, experimental, alternative, kind of license fee funded audio content. But without that glorious tradition that the BBC has upheld for 90 plus years, I don't think it would have actually allowed this kind of very unique breeding ground we have in the UK of a lot of great podcast scripted content creators, which we now see today.
Yeah.
So, we kind of we're just doing our own thing because BBC was over there, we're over here.
When you say we, you mean, you mentioned Wireless, the Wireless Theatre Company, which is a huge name in the audio industry, of course.
Absolutely. And there were a few others as well experimenting at the time, like Tin Can Podcast and, oh God, you can tell it's been a long lockdown. in those early days. And there were like some grassroots of the same thing happening in the US as well. But, we were just experimenting, finding new ways to showcase new talent that maybe hadn't tried audio or actively wanted to get into the radio, or, the BBC felt that inaccessible. And it was also kind of felt like a playground where you could sit down and say, you want to test yourself. And the one thing I will always give Marielle credit for is normally, I started as an actor, then kind of veered into writing, went through a terrible play. Then I was just saying, like, I think I can direct better than this guy's directing me. And 3 weeks later, Marielle gave me a script and went, here you are, would you like to direct a play? And not many companies actually would do that. You know what I mean? They would actually pigeonhole you creatively and say, you're the actor, you're the writer. Part of that experimentation was kind of allowing individuals to grow and try new things. So if you wanted to direct, okay, no problem, we'll give it a go. You wanted to write something? Let's have a look. And I think that's, set up a lot of very, very clever and creative people.
Otherwise, it's actually really tough to kind of sidestep, isn't it? And try and get into something else. Yeah. And you mentioned Stephen Fry there and Timothy West, but I mean, you've worked with some pretty huge names like Sophie Okonedo, Tom Conti, Kate Mulgrew. That's Janeway from Voyager for the Trekkies. Yeah. And as a producer, you're meant to take everything in your stride, of course. But have you ever found yourself just completely starstruck?
Well, I mean, I gotta say, a lot of the time, a lot of the early stuff, I was kind of very lucky. So Stephen Fry, it just happened because I've been attached to the previous script. So he kind of brought in the sequel, and that was pure luck. A lot of the names you mentioned there, that's kind of when I moved over to working with Audible UK. Audible. Love global talent and like global names like Sophie and Tom and Patterson Joseph is just like the loveliest man in the world. He's the only actor ever to pull me to one side and say, Jack, how are you doing?
Oh,
yeah, but no actor ever asks how the producer's doing. But yes, starstruck. I'd say the most extraordinary day we ever had was when Brian Blessed came into the studio.
Well, extraordinary and Brian Blessed are mutually exclusive, aren't they?
I think it's on his birth certificate. So always got a spit take there. No, because like he first of all, he's very self-aware about his star power. He is also believe it or not, very generally softly spoken. It's what he differentiates that I'm Brian or I'm Brian Blessed. And that's how we directed. It's like, which one do you want? Brian or Brian Blessed? But he just walked in with such intense magnetism. Like he sat there, we were supposed to record, and engineers paid by the hour, as you know. And he sat there and he decided to tell a little story about him climbing the Himalayan mountains. And this story went on for an hour and 10 minutes. But what he was actually doing was he was relaxing the room and kind of dissipating the I'm Brian Blessed factor.
Yeah.
And he said, right, now we're ready to walk. You know what? Did his stuff, came out the booth, told another story for 40 minutes. And I remember this. I was desperate for the loo at the end of the session. But he came out and you just could not take your eyes off him. And I actually forgot I needed the toilet because it was that magnetic. And walked away. And the engineer did not pay for the extra time. Did not charge us. Did not invoice us. Literally just the recording hours.
That's amazing. They must have had a good time doing it too.
I'll quickly tell you this story. The most starstruck I got with Brian, we were in the middle of a take. And we had this relationship where he could do a line. If he didn't like it, he'd go back and he'd do it again. He knew what he was doing. It was very easy to direct him. But he also would allow me that if I wanted a retake, he'd come back and I'd say, let's do it again. It was all fine. And he did this beautiful take and he paused and he just sighed under his breath. And he said, Jack, I'm sorry. I'm being a... I'll do it again better. And all I could think of in that, because he swears like a trooper, but all I could think about in that moment was, work with big names, but he actually really made an effort to get to know my name, what my name was, use my name, and actually throw me these little gags as director. And it was just like, I think it's the most magical time I had working with a big name.
That's lovely. That's lovely. I think you can tell, can't you, with people why they're doing what they're doing.
I do have a lovely collection off the back of Expeditionary Force because we had, as you say, Kate Mulgrew, Robert Picardo, and Zachary Quinto all working on that. So we for Trekkie fans, we crossed the timelines. We got Kelvin and Prime in there, and because a lot of the record they were all done in isolation over in the US. The production team afforded me the rare honor where I have outtakes of each single one of them swearing at me.
Oh, fantastic.
They were actually coached in how to insult me, and they sent over the clip saying, here's Robert Picardo telling you to go away.
That's awesome.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Last year, you were awarded the UK registered trademark of Audio Marvels for a decade.
Yes.
What does that mean? And what plans are you realising any plans, or are they put on hold?
No, well, yes and no. So I am looking to be building a new production company in the years ahead. Now, it may have escaped many people's notice that the last few years has been particularly bad for working out how to set up a business or how to take one forward, or how the world's going to look from this year onwards. So what I did was I looked at the idea, first of all, Audio Marvels has been created to be a label. And that label is about real high concept, high quality, forward thinking audio drama or scripted podcast drama that actually takes advantage of the medium and uses it in a way where it's not like online radio. It's about making fully realized audio movies and giving it huge scale and creating big, exciting stories that really sound fresh for the 21st century. So I've trademarked that label for 10 years to lock it down for when I'm ready to launch the company. So at the minute, the label is being used across certain productions. It's being used on Unsinkable. It's being used on Circles. And there are projects ahead. But also within that, even though the company doesn't exist, there's certain infrastructure I'm building right now. We're looking at ways to change the approach of writing scripted audio drama, looking at ways to improve workflow, particularly the last thing I've been doing, the thing I've been doing for the last 3 years has been looking at US, UK co-productions because the podcast market has exploded over there. So it's a label, it's a brand to put on really good, exciting podcast content, which will naturally evolve into a production company in the next few years. Yeah. But first, we kind of got to let the economy settle down a little bit because it's going through a bit of a shock or two. But it doesn't stop me using that brand label now. and building up a catalogue. And that also still, at the minute, gives me the freedom to work with some really, really great producers, both here in the UK, US, and maybe even as far as India, he said mysteriously.
Fantastic. Well, Jack, it's been absolutely delightful having a chat with you. Where can people find you online if they want to look out your work?
Well, most of it is on my website, which is jackbowman.net. The Audio Marvels website is currently under construction, so we're working on that. So yeah, www.jackbowman.net, and you can contact me through a contact form there if anyone wants to chat all things scripted audio.
Lovely. Thank you very much. For now, Jack Bowman, thank you ever so much for joining me for a cuppa.
Thank you very much, Gareth. Take care.
Thanks again to Jack for his time and company. All of his links are in the show notes, so go and have a browse on his website. It's a fascinating read. If you fancy starting your weekends with an informal cuppa and a chat, head to the Facebook page, that's @ScreenlessPod, and join the Creative Cuppa group. It's between 9 and 9:30 a.m. and a nice way to start Fridays with a cuppa and some friendly faces. There's no agenda, just a friendly natter, really. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, be an awesome human and tell someone about it, or share it on the socials, or leave a review, or all of them. Ta. Until next time, thank you for joining me for a cuppa.